I was out back cleaning up the last of the barbecue trays from the weekend. Still smelled like burnt ribs and sunscreen. The sun was starting to dip behind the trees, and everything felt normal, familiar, until it didn't. Haley had flown down to L.A. that morning for one of her company culture weekends. You know, the kind of corporate retreat that's more about cocktail hours than conference rooms. I figured she'd be MIA for a couple days. So when I saw her phone just sitting there on the patio table, screen still glowing, I thought it must have buzzed and she forgot it before heading to the airport. That's when I noticed it was live streaming. I leaned in. My stomach turned the second I saw her on screen. She was in a dimly lit hotel ballroom, laughing, dancing, pressed up against some guy I didn't recognize. The way they moved together, too familiar, too comfortable. The camera wasn't focused on them, but someone nearby shouted, "There they go again, the real couple of the year," and then laughed like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The stream kept rolling as they embraced under flashing lights. He leaned in close and said something in her ear that made her tilt her head back and smile in that way I used to think was just for me. Hearts and comments were pouring in on the side of the screen. People watching, people encouraging. I didn't recognize the usernames, but I recognized the tone. Approval. Normalization. They were in on it. I was the outsider now. Then I heard the side door open behind me. Haley walked into the yard. "Oh, crap," she said, spotting her phone still recording. She grabbed it off the table quickly and ended the stream. "That was just a stupid joke," she said, barely looking at me. They were messing around, filming everything. Team bonding stuff. I nodded, didn't say a word, just kept drying my hands on the dish towel and mentally marking the moment like a red pin on a map. I didn't know where it led yet, but I had a feeling this was the first real clue. "Let me know what you'd like to tweak, and I'll adjust before moving on to part 2. You said, remember that each part must contain strictly 7,000 characters. Make this part longer." ChatGPT said, "Understood. Here's part 1. The stream she shouldn't have left open, revised to meet the 7,000 character requirement. It's written in first person, with emotional realism and subtle tension, setting the stage for the story to come. Part 1. The stream she shouldn't have left open. The scent of charred meat still lingered in the air from Sunday's barbecue, stubborn and thick like it had wedged itself into the cushions of the patio chairs. I was out back alone, scraping crusted sauce off the grill and tossing beer cans into the recycling bin. It had been a good weekend, normal, casual, full of laughter and noise. But now it was Monday afternoon, and the silence felt too sharp. Haley had flown to Los Angeles that morning for another one of her company's weekend-long strategy sessions. The kind of trip where everything sounded legitimate, ballrooms, leadership panels, cocktail receptions, but never quite sat right with me. She traveled a lot for work, so I didn't question it out loud anymore. I'd learned it was easier to just nod along than poke the bear and get snapped at for being controlling. She was supposed to be gone until Tuesday, so when I saw her phone sitting on the patio table, screen still lit, I figured she must have run back inside in a hurry. Maybe a quick bathroom break. Maybe she forgot it entirely. But it was odd. She never left her phone unlocked. Ever. And yet there it was, wide open and streaming live video. At first, I thought it was some kind of glitch or maybe a butt-dialed FaceTime. I leaned over, and that's when my stomach flipped. There she was, Haley, on screen, standing in a softly lit ballroom. Music thudded in the background, the kind of cheap pop remix you'd expect at a hotel event. She was wearing the pale green satin dress I'd seen her pack that morning. The one she said was, just in case there's a formal dinner. She was dancing. Not with a group. Not in a casual way. With a man. Tall, clean-shaven, dark navy suit. He had his hand on the small of her back, pulling her in close. Too close. His fingers slipped slightly under the fabric as they moved together like they'd done it before. Her arms looped around his neck. She was smiling, eyes glassy, carefree, and leaning into him like gravity itself had shifted. I didn't recognize him, but from the way they looked at each other, he wasn't a stranger. Someone off camera laughed and said, "There they go, the real couple of the year." A few more chuckles followed. One woman's voice, loud and unfiltered, shouted, "You two better get a room already." Haley giggled. The screen kept going. Comments began flying up the left-hand side. Floating hearts and laughing emojis flooded in. Finally, we've all been waiting for this. Power couple energy. He's fine as hell, girl. What's your husband think of this? Face with tears of joy. That last one hit me like a slap. My jaw clenched and my vision narrowed. I couldn't move. I just stood there staring at this tiny glass rectangle on a table I had built with my own hands, watching the woman I had married 5 years ago act like she was auditioning for another life. I don't know how long I watched. 30 seconds? A full minute? Time seemed to bend around the moment. Then I heard the sliding glass door behind me open. "Hey," she said casually, stepping outside. She was barefoot, her travel bag still in the hallway behind her. I realized immediately she hadn't gone to L.A. yet. Either her flight was delayed, or she had lied about the schedule. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she walked straight over to the patio table and snatched her phone up without even looking at me. "Oh my God," she muttered, tapping the screen frantically. "I thought I ended that. It was just a joke. We were playing around before the event really got going." Her voice was light, dismissive, like she was swatting away a fly. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked mildly annoyed. At the situation, maybe at me, like I had walked into a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. "A joke," I repeated. I kept my tone even, like I hadn't just watched her emotionally cheat on me in 1080p. "Yeah, you know how these things go. Everyone's bored, someone starts filming, people start playing it up. Nothing serious. Just dumb office humor." She glanced up at me then. Finally. Her expression was unreadable. She could have been lying, or maybe she believed it was harmless. I didn't know, but something had shifted. Something inside me that I didn't even know could move had jolted loose. "Okay," I said. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded like a man choosing to believe his house isn't on fire even while the smoke fills the air. She breezed past me, muttering something about needing to change clothes and check her boarding time again. The screen on her phone had gone dark. No more ballroom. No more dancing. No more evidence, at least not right in front of me. I finished the cleanup in silence. Later that night, she texted me from the airport. A casual, "Love you. Be safe while I'm gone," followed by a heart emoji and a photo of her plane ticket. I stared at the picture, noticing that the flight was 2 hours later than she'd originally told me. Just a detail. Just a mistake, maybe. But it landed in my gut like a cold rock. I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything yet. Just still. Because here's the thing. Trust doesn't always shatter in a burst of rage. Sometimes it just buckles like wet cardboard under a weight it wasn't built to carry. And once it caves in, it doesn't go back. That night, I sat in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I could still hear her laugh echoing from the stream. Still see the way she leaned into that man. Still feel the pause before she said it was all a joke. I thought about all the other moments like this one that I'd brushed off over the past year. The business trips that ran long. The random texts she'd never explain. The way she started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. Little things. Always little things. But now I had a red pin on the map. A timestamp. A crack in the story. I didn't confront her. I didn't rage. I just started taking notes. I've always believed that when something feels wrong, it usually is. But like most people in long-term relationships, I learned to talk myself out of that instinct. You want to trust your partner. You want to believe that love means something. That if things go quiet or weird or distant, it's just a phase, work stress, seasonal depression, maybe just a slump in the rhythm. Not a betrayal. Never that. But after the live stream, something cracked. Quietly, like a hairline fracture in glass. Barely visible at first. But the more I looked, the more I saw. And once I started paying attention, I couldn't stop. That night, after Haley left for L.A. For real this time, I sat at my desk in the home office staring at the ceiling. The The blue light from my laptop cast long shadows across the walls, and I started thinking back, mentally rewinding the last year of our life together like a detective scrubbing through security footage. It didn't take long before things started to click. The strategy retreats, the back-to-back weekend conferences, the overnights she insisted were mandatory. I remembered how she'd come home exhausted but radiant, almost like she was glowing. Her stories never matched the tone. She'd say the panel went great, but never tell me what the panel was about. She'd come home with new clothes that I never saw her wear again. One time, she left behind a folder from a Seattle client workshop. I Googled the hotel and the dates later. No such event. And then there were the smaller things I had told myself not to be petty about. Like the time I found a men's shirt in the back of our laundry that definitely wasn't mine. It was too slim-fitting, smelled like cologne, and had a dry cleaning tag from a place downtown I'd never used. She told me she picked it up by accident from the gym. It was just someone else's laundry bag, she said. The guy must have had a locker next to hers. I wanted to believe her, so I did. And then there was the name slip. One night a few months ago, we were having dinner at home. Pasta, garlic bread, wine, just us. She was telling me a story about a coworker, and somewhere in the middle of the sentence, she said a name that wasn't mine. She caught it immediately and corrected herself, brushing it off with a laugh. Sorry, I was thinking of a story from work. I meant you. I raised an eyebrow but let it go. Everyone gets tongue-tied sometimes, right? But it was a man's name, and it wasn't one I recognized. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how often her explanations seemed rehearsed, polished, too quick, as if she'd been preparing for the questions before I ever asked them. Even her tone had changed lately. I used to know her voice like I knew the back of my own hand, warm, open, a little goofy. But recently it was clipped, guarded, like she was constantly half-defending herself in conversations that hadn't even started yet. Back then, I chalked it up to work stress. They were going through a merger, I think, or a rebranding. I can't remember anymore. There was always some corporate shuffle happening. But now I wondered if it wasn't work at all. Maybe it was the guilt of living a double life. Or maybe it was resentment. Maybe she was mad at me for not knowing, not catching her sooner. Maybe she wanted to get caught. Some people do. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the little black moleskine notebook I used for budgeting. I flipped to a blank page, wrote Haley travel dates, and started listing every trip I could remember. I checked my calendar, emails, text confirmations, old Instagram posts. Then I opened my banking app and cross-referenced her travel expenses. Most were clean. Uber rides, airport coffee shops, boutique hotel charges. Normal stuff. But a few entries jumped out. Like a $300 dinner for two in Chicago on a night she said she was in a hotel preparing slides for a panel. Or the spa charge in San Diego during what was supposedly a back-to-back schedule. I noted it all down, quietly, carefully. I didn't want to confront her without knowing everything, because I've seen what happens when people go in half-informed. They get twisted in circles. They ask a question, get a confident answer, and walk away doubting themselves instead of the liar. I didn't want to be that guy. Not again. So I took my time. For the next few days, I started testing things. Light, subtle probes. I asked her who else was at the LA event. She mentioned a few coworkers but didn't include the guy from the video. I asked what sessions she attended. She changed the subject. I offered to drive her to the airport for her next trip. She said no. She'd already arranged a ride. Didn't want to bother me. And yet, she still kissed me goodbye before she left. Still said, love you. Still sent photos of her hotel breakfast like everything was fine. It messed with my head. I wanted to believe those moments were real. That even if something had happened, it was over now. That she still loved me. That she was just caught up in something she couldn't control. But that's a lie we tell ourselves to avoid the truth. And the truth was starting to look ugly. I tried to go about my week like normal, but it felt like every part of my life had a crack running through it. Work felt meaningless. Food tasted flat. I couldn't focus on conversations. I kept replaying the video in my mind, The way she leaned into him, the sound of her laugh, the way she didn't look guilty at all. That's what haunted me most. She didn't look like someone doing something she'd regret. She looked happy. And that was a different kind of betrayal. By Friday night, I was exhausted. I stayed up late again, watching her old Instagram stories, trying to find anything I missed. I went back almost a year. There were posts where she was smiling at conferences, captioned with things like, team bonding or making moves briefcase airplane. I never noticed how many of those were taken from hotel balconies. Always the same angles. Always the same skyline. In some cases, the same wine glass on the same table. Different cities. Same scene. It was like a pattern someone left behind on purpose. That's when I knew. I didn't have all the answers yet. I didn't know exactly who he was or how long it had been going on or whether she was lying to protect herself or just to keep me in the dark. But I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew my gut was right. And I knew the man in the livestream wasn't just some dance partner. He was a clue in a puzzle I was finally willing to solve. The illusion was breaking, and I was done pretending not to see it. It started with an email. No subject line. No sender name I recognized. Just a plain message sitting at the top of my inbox at 6:07 a.m. on a Tuesday. For a moment, I stared at it without opening it. I'd barely slept. I was running on cold coffee and whatever adrenaline was left from the slow-burning paranoia of the past week. My mouse hovered over the delete button, but something in me paused. I clicked. No text in the body. Just attachments. 3 image files. 1 PDF. Compressed folder. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until the first photo loaded. It was Haley. She was in the lobby of a hotel, bundled in a coat, pulling her suitcase. Smiling. The timestamp in the top corner read 9:42 p.m. Dated 2 weekends ago, one of the many conferences she claimed was all work and no play. Standing next to her was the same man from the live stream. His hand was on the small of her back. Again, the way he looked at her, it wasn't professional. It wasn't casual. It was int asterisk mate. Familiar. Like they had history. The next image showed them in front of the elevator. He kissed her forehead. The third one, it showed them walking into a hotel room. Together. The door half open. Her hand holding his. The PDF was worse. It was an invoice, emailed from the hotel's front desk to a guest email address that matched Haley's initials. A suite reservation. 1 king bed. 2 guests. There were charges for room service. Wine, 2 entrees, late-night delivery. There was also a note added to the account. Anniversary upgrade, complimentary bottle delivered to room. Enjoy your stay, Mr. and Mrs. W. Mr. and Mrs. W. I leaned back in my chair, trying to slow the rise of heat crawling up my neck. It felt like something had ked all the air out of the room. I opened the compressed folder. Inside was a spreadsheet. Simple, plain formatting. It listed 3 conferences, 3 cities, Chicago, San Diego, and Boston. Dates, hotels, room numbers. 2 guests each time. A single suite. Always 1 bed. Notes next to each row included names, reservation numbers, guest IDs. And in every case, his name showed up. I finally had it. Marcus Whitfield. That's who he was. Not just a colleague. Not just some harmless coworker Haley danced with at a company party. He was in every city, every hotel, always checked in under a fake bundle of professional lingo. But the logistics said everything the captions never did. This wasn't emotional infidelity. It wasn't accidental. It was repeated, deliberate, coordinated. And I'd been played. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember walking to the sink or dumping the rest of my coffee down the drain. I just remember gripping the edge of the counter, waiting for the feeling in my hands to come back. I wasn't sad, not in the way people expect. I wasn't crying or trembling or screaming. I was calm, scarily calm, because something inside me had stopped waiting for hope, for apologies, for explanation. I had been loyal, patient, trusting. I had been the husband who took care of the house while she networked, the one who smiled when she texted from hotel rooms, the one who accepted her answers even when they didn't fit. And now I was the man she thought would never put the puzzle together. I walked back into the office, sat down, and opened a blank Google document. At the top, I typed, filing timeline, strategy plan. It wasn't revenge I wanted. Not really. I didn't need to hurt her. I just needed to be precise. To reclaim something she chipped away at for over a year, my clarity, my dignity. I started taking inventory. Not just emotional damage, but assets. Bank accounts, shared expenses, my name on the mortgage, my lawyer friend who owed me a favor from 2 years back. I searched Marcus Whitfield. LinkedIn profile, senior product strategist at her firm. His bio was as smug as I expected, buzzwords, leadership cliches, a photo of him in a Patagonia vest pretending to be humble. It made my skin crawl. He wasn't even divorced. His profile said husband and father of 2, like a badge of honor. So he was lying to more than one person. Interesting. I didn't know who had sent me the files. There was no signature, no clue, just evidence dropped into my inbox like a package on a doorstep. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I realized it wasn't. Someone knew. Someone had been watching, tracking, maybe even waiting for me to wake up. Maybe they worked with Haley. Maybe they'd seen enough. Maybe they were tired of the lies, too. Whatever their reason, they'd given me everything I needed. I printed the documents. Every file. Every photo. I placed them into a folder and slid it into the drawer beneath the desk. Then I backed up the originals to a cloud drive locked, encrypted, offsite. Not because I planned to use them right away, but because I might. That night, when Haley called from her hotel room, I let it go to voicemail. Her text came 5 minutes later. Long day. K** led it at the panel. Heading to dinner with the team soon. Red heart, miss you. I stared at it for a long time. Then slowly I typed, hope it went well. Let's catch up tomorrow. I hit send, closed the thread, and stared at the wall for what felt like an hour. There was a time when I would have wanted her to come clean, to cry, to confess, to explain why she risked everything for a man who didn't even post real photos with his wife. But I didn't want that anymore. I wanted resolution, and maybe something more, quiet justice. The next morning I called my lawyer friend, Darren. We'd met in college. He owed me from back when I helped him move apartments with a pulled hamstring in July heat. Hey, I said, need to talk. Not urgent, but it's about Haley. He paused. You okay? I will be. I just need to know what my options are. He didn't ask for details, just said, come by the office. Bring whatever you've got. I packed the folder. On my way out the door, I paused by the hall mirror. I looked at myself like I was meeting a stranger. Same eyes, same face, same man. But something was different now. Not broken. Awake. I hadn't posted on my YouTube channel in over 3 months. It started as a passion project, a quiet corner of the internet where I talked about digital ethics, privacy, the balance between visibility and vulnerability. Niche stuff. I never expected much from it, just an outlet to share thoughts and maybe help people think more critically about the tech they used every day. But after what happened with Haley, something about the irony of it all wouldn't let me sleep. She used technology to lie, to perform, to curate an image of herself that didn't exist. A live stream left open by mistake, a digital trail she thought she could cover. This wasn't just personal betrayal. It was a case study, and I realized I had the tools to tell this story without ever using her name. So I wrote a script. I stayed up most of the night, pacing between the kitchen and my office. The words came out of me like steam from a pressure valve. Controlled, focused. Every sentence filtered through a lens of clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. When I finally hit record the next afternoon, I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was steady, calm. Not the victim of a cheating spouse, but the narrator of a lesson. I titled the live stream, Consequences in the Age of Content. I dressed in a gray t-shirt. No gimmicks. Just me at my desk with a sealed manila envelope on the table in front of me. I didn't explain what was in it. I didn't even touch it. I just let it sit there quietly as I began. Today, I want to talk about something most of us don't think about until it's too late. the digital evidence we leave behind, not just the photos we post, but the messages we send, the metadata we forget about, the tiny digital fingerprints we scatter across platforms. And what happens when those fingerprints don't match the stories we tell? I didn't say her name. I didn't need to. I never used Marcus's name either. I kept everything in the realm of principle. But the references were surgical. Let's say, hypothetically, a person builds their life around trust. Around the idea that their partner, their person, is where they say they are. That loyalty is assumed, sacred. Now imagine discovering, through a live stream left open by accident, that this person isn't who they claim to be. That the image they presented to the world was carefully managed, until the stream pulled back the curtain. I paused. The chat was blowing up, but I ignored it. Now imagine you start connecting dots, hotel invoices, matching travel records, conference appearances that line up a little too perfectly. You don't have to hack anything. You just have to pay attention. *TS, timestamps, shared calendars. The truth isn't buried. It's just scattered. But if you're patient and careful and quiet, you can piece it all together. I leaned slightly forward. And once you do, you have a choice. You can yell. You can scream. You can blow up your life in a burst of emotion. Or, you can move with precision. At that point, I glanced at the envelope on the table. I'm not here to expose anyone. This isn't about drama. It's about clarity. When people lie consistently, they build a story, a structure. But if you know where to look, one video, one email, one mistake is all it takes to bring the whole thing down. I ended the stream without fanfare. No dramatic sign-off. No calls to action. Just a quiet thank you and a fade to black. I went outside afterward. Sat on the deck. Listened to the breeze move through the trees. My phone buzzed every few seconds, but I didn't check it. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was happening. By midnight, the clip had already been reposted to Reddit, Twitter, and TikTok. Someone on a forum guessed the company name based on the conference I vaguely described. Someone else recognized Marcus from another event photo. *TS started circulating. Commentary followed. Haley's face, once buried behind corporate posts and curated vacation *TS, was suddenly attached to a story none of her PR training could spin. By morning, the views had passed 2 million. I didn't say a word. The envelope was still sealed on the desk. I made breakfast like it was any other day. Toast, coffee, a fried egg that didn't quite flip the way I wanted it to. I watered the plants, took the trash out, checked in on my freelance work. Haley didn't text, didn't call. I knew she'd seen it. Her silence told me everything. That afternoon, I visited the bank. We'd had a shared account for years, but my personal one was already set up and active. I made sure the autodrafts were rerouted, my paycheck redirected. I removed myself from 2 credit lines tied to her business account. I updated the online passwords and confirmed the assets I'd already moved over during the past week. Then I called my lawyer, Darren. The response is bigger than I expected, I said. He laughed dryly. It's surgical. You handed them a parable with teeth. I wasn't trying to ruin her, I said. Just make it undeniable. You did. And more. That evening, I received an email from a former coworker of hers. It simply said, she's spiraling. Her phone hasn't stopped. People figured it out. The office is in lockdown mode. She knows it's over. Just thought you should know. Proud of how you handled it. I read the message twice. Then I archived it. Later that night, I sat back down at my desk, picked up the envelope, and placed it into a drawer. I still hadn't opened it on camera. Didn't need to. His presence was enough. What mattered wasn't the paper itself. It was the posture. The message, I know. And I'm not asking for anything. The internet had done the rest. People wanted to speculate? Let them. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't jump into the threads or the gossip. I just watched from a distance as the truth took shape on its own. Not because I fed it, but because her actions left a trail loud enough to follow. I wasn't proud of any of it. But I wasn't ashamed either. This wasn't vengeance. It was documentation. A mirror held up to a lie too carefully rehearsed, too often repeated. She had played her part so well, so consistently, she forgot the script was being recorded. Now it was playing back in real time. Not because I exposed her, but because she live-streamed the first scene herself. They didn't fire her. Not right away. That's not how companies work when someone's too visible to drop quietly but too radioactive to defend. Instead, they let her twist. It started 3 days after the stream. I hadn't posted anything else. I'd gone dark online. No interviews, no follow-ups, no second video. I didn't need to. The internet had already dissected every frame of the stream, every vague sentence I dropped, every background detail. Reddit threads mapped out conference schedules. TikTokers broke down body language. Twitter, of course, was merciless. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, someone sent everything to her company's ethics line. I don't know who did it. Could have been a viewer. Could have been someone inside. All I know is that I got a text from someone I used to know on her team. It's happening. HR pulled her this morning. They didn't even try to hide it. I didn't reply. Later that day, I got an email from another ex-colleague of hers. Someone who used to show up in our holiday photos before we stopped doing couples dinners. They're freezing her access. Full review. The **TS were enough. Also, she knows it was you. That made me pause. Not because I cared what she thought, but because even now, she still believed this was about her. I hadn't said her name, hadn't accused, hadn't made it personal. But her guilt had done the math for me. Her silence, too. She'd stayed completely offline. No statements, no denials, no counterspin, which in PR is louder than shouting. From what I gathered, it began with a locked badge. That's how you know they're serious. She showed up to the office and her keycard wouldn't open the front doors. Security let her in manually, but she was told to wait in the holding room, what they called the lounge, but really just a beige cell with stale coffee and a dying ficus. She sat there for almost an hour while IT pulled her accounts. Not just email. Everything. Messaging history. Drive files. Travel logs. Calendar data. They mirrored her laptop. They printed chat logs between her and Marcus. The ones they thought were deleted. The ones where they joked about strategy weekends and how they managed to squeeze in fun between panels. The comments about hotel upgrades didn't help. Neither did the invoice someone submitted under her name for a champagne bottle labeled, "To my favorite coworker." From what I heard, they didn't confront her directly. They never do. That's not how corporate coldness works. There's no yelling, no showdown, just policy. They told her she was being reassigned pending internal investigation. They revoked her credentials, moved her to a temporary desk near the copier, removed her from the leadership calendar invites. Her Slack channels disappeared. Her team was redistributed. One of them, a woman I'd met once at an office party, was told not to speak with Haley unless professionally necessary. Marcus, he vanished too, shipped to another branch out of state. No explanation, just a reallocation of resources. Standard reorg language. But the timing spoke louder than any memo. They didn't call it punishment. They called it compliance. And in tech companies, that's the equivalent of a scarlet letter. I heard she tried to salvage it. She showed up for work each morning, dressed sharp, smiling at people who didn't meet her eyes. She sent calendar invites to meetings no one attended. Posted status updates in Slack threads that no one replied to. It was quiet, professional exile. Her office, once glass-walled and positioned near the center of the open floor, was reassigned to a junior project manager. She was relocated to a cubicle next to the maintenance closet. No nameplate, no welcome, just a desk, a chair, and a message. You're still here, but you're not really here. The social unraveling happened in tandem. Happy hour invites stopped. Her name vanished from internal recognition threads. One day, the employee spotlight wall at the front of the office, where they posted framed **TS of senior leads, was quietly rearranged. Her photo disappeared. No explanation. No announcement. It was like she'd never been part of the story. From what I was told, the worst part wasn't the reassignment. It was the silence. No one confronted her. No one yelled. No one even gossiped